The outpouring of this is tragedy. And when you're young and you don't think straight, they get bought into an ideology that the other side has to be silenced. Everybody is aware of the horrible tragedy that just recently happened with Charlie Kirk. In this video, I'm going to show you how this was an unfortunate result of a very, very deep level PSYOP. Number one, I'm going to show you the exact steps of this psychological operation that caused this to happen. Number two, I'm going to articulate for you who the exact enemy is in this situation. And number three, I'm going to show you who actually benefits from this tragedy. Put on your seatbelt. Let's get started. What happened here is a 6-step process. You can find this in FBI documentation, CIA documentation, and United States military documentation. By the way, as an aside, these 6 steps I'm going to show you are the exact same steps that someone would use to initiate someone into a cult. Step number 1, you identify your target audience. This is not difficult when you have two sides of the coin, Republicans and Democrats, conservatives, liberals, whichever you'd like to call it, but you identify your target audience. And step number 2 is you make them feel isolated. Again, this is exactly what you do in a cult. You find your target audience, but instead of making them feel isolated in a cult, you actually isolate them and get them to cut off communication with their family and friends. But the sticky part of this is in part number 2, when you're making them feel isolated, you also push the idea that the other side cannot be listened to, and if they don't agree with you, you're to cut them off. You go no contact even with your family. Step number 3 is you feed them carefully selected information. You make sure that any media outlet that they're listening to only pushes one side of whatever the propaganda is that you're looking for, but it needs to incite the person who is listening and watching. Step number 4, which coincides with that, is that you have everything happening in what we call an echo chamber. In other words, when you're presenting this over the internet or through a news program or some type of media source, what you want to do is make sure that everyone is agreeing with each other about the other side. One of the ways that the media does this is that they create outrage.
Resist the temptation to run up and wring her neck.
Biggest terror threat in this country.
I'd like to punch him in the face. I said if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
So you'll notice that many times media outlets will circumvent the facts and they will manufacture outrage. Now this drives attention and this also drives clicks. While this is happening, the person who feels like they're isolated and feels like they have only one option is getting more and more worked up, and they begin to concoct ideas about what to do. And unfortunately, the media will be the first to help them out. Check this out.
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump, and that's a fact.
This will all take place in what's called the media blitz, which means that at any time you can turn the channel or look at different websites and you're going to find out that they're all pushing the same narrative. And when progressive liberal organizations own most of the media contacts, that's why you're going to find that they generally push only one side of an issue. Step number 5, you push their emotions until their behavior changes. Remember what I said about cults earlier. This is something else. Once they've got you indoctrinated, once they've got you isolated, once they've got you to cut off contact with those that you love and those that care about you, and of course anyone that disagrees with you, they push your emotional buttons until you break and you begin to exhibit the behavior that they want. And this is exactly what happens in a PSYOP. And step number 6, remember what I told you in another video, we run off of applications. These are things that we do without our brains even having to labor to conjure up ideas about, because we're so used to doing them. We're following a pattern, we're following a script, we're following an application. So in this step, we push the button of the tribe, we push the button of the group of people that you want to be a part of, and we create the us versus them narrative. And just like in a cult, there always must be an us versus them narrative, because at some point, the person being indoctrinated into that cult must feel like there is no other option but to fight against anyone who has a differing viewpoint. And it's the same thing in a PSYOP. So once you've pressed hard on those 6 steps, the next thing is we have to find out who is the actual enemy here. Because during a PSYOP, what will happen is, as one side is pitted against the other, you're going to be indoctrinated into the idea that everyone who has a different viewpoint than you is the enemy. But that's not true. Unfortunately, we've all been scammed into thinking that this is Democrat versus Republican, and that is part of it, but it's bigger than that, and it's much deeper than that. So while the media is getting you to be livid over watching people scream at a protest, or watching people do something that disgusts you on television, or do something that really rubs you the wrong way because they're insulting things that you believe in, the true enemy begins to be exposed. And the actual enemy are entrenched people that are parts of large corporations, and they feed both Democrat and Republican coffers. They have more money than you can ever imagine, and they set the narrative. They benefit no matter who wins the election. They bankroll politicians, they write the rules from behind the scenes, and as I said, they win no matter who wins at the ballot box. If you know who any of these organizations are, put it in the comment section. I'll give you more about that in just a minute, but let's go into who actually benefits when these types of things happen, like this tragedy that we just witnessed. So you might be asking yourself, if it's not truly left versus right, then who's benefiting from this? Who's pulling the strings? And the answer is that there are two groups of people. One are often called the elites. These are people that tend to be untouchable because of how much money that they have. You might be thinking of someone maybe with the last name of Soros. And then there's ones that you don't know so much about. And these people in the FBI and the CIA are called covert elites. They have access to more resources than you could ever imagine, and they work with conglomerate companies that are large, that purchase lots of real estate and purchase lots of debt. Any idea who you think that might be? So these are not people that are twisting their mustache while tying a woman to the railroad tracks. These are elite level CEOs that work behind the scenes, and they make giant campaign donations. Have you ever noticed that people like this donate to both sides of the political ticket? What's the purpose behind all this? It's one word. It's control. These people don't care about your values. They don't care about your family. They don't care about what happens to you in the future. And guess what? Division is the cheapest and most effective tool ever invented to create control. Remember, these types of PSYOPs are articulated and documented step by step in the FBI, the CIA, and in military documents. You identify your target audience, you make them feel isolated, or you isolate them. You feed them carefully selected information. You bounce it off of the echo chamber so that everyone agrees with you and every media source says that they agree with you. You push their emotions until their behavior changes to what you're looking for. And then you create the narrative that it's us versus them. This is textbook PSYOP behavior. The outpouring of this is tragedy, because what happens is in the middle, when people are being involved in this, especially young people with very moldable minds, they get bought into an ideology and they feel pressured to do something to support that ideology. And when you're young and you don't think straight, you automatically go to the idea that the other side has to be silenced. Let me tell you something. If your idea is good, if your idea is not garbage, people don't have to be silenced. So people with different types of mental issues, people with different types of needs that tend to be cognitive, will jump on the bandwagon of getting involved in what they see as some kind of a wild turf war, and they don't think big picture enough to realize how many people who will have their lives destroyed by an action like what we saw in this tragedy recently. Who do you think is behind most of this left and right garbage? Who do you think is the one that is cashing the most checks, that is actually benefiting from these things? The information is available. If you know, put it in the comment section.